Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. Today we're talking about a question popular amongst wargamers and military historians. Who is the greatest general? Or perhaps rather, what is it that makes the greatest general? Now if you ask people who is the greatest general in history, you'll get a whole slew of different answers, and these will depend on people's area of interests, eras they're interested in, geographical locations, etc. You might have someone point to Sun Tzu, for example. You might have an antiquity expert pointing to Alexander the Great. More recent examples may include Napoleon, Ulysses Grant, Ernst Rommel. So many different people, and separated by such huge amounts of time, where more recent generals have the advantages of hugely more developed technological advantages, be it communications, weapon systems, etc. So how do we go about choosing? What are the factors we think about? Maybe it's battlefield success. Wellington never lost a battle, and in fact you can look at Waterloo as being very influential for European history, with Napoleon being put back in his box. But you could also look at that and take into account that Napoleon was not in a great position because of the movements of the Austrians, etc., coming across, and had he not lost at Waterloo, would he just have lost somewhere else ultimately anyway? Maybe you want to look at tactical innovation. What about Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba, who developed the Tertio system, which was massively influential during the pike and shot era of European continental warfare? Maybe it's strategic innovation that you're looking for. Maybe you look no further than Napoleon Bonaparte himself, who revolutionized, I should say, the way war was fought, taking the style of the Ancien regime into what is now become known as the Napoleonic era, with the development of his corps system. A completely different way of moving men around the map on a campaign. Or perhaps we're just looking at a logistical perspective, being able to move huge numbers of men and materials to put them in the right place at the right time to achieve success. And then maybe we're looking at someone like Dwight Eisenhower, for example, in that category. Given the nature of this channel as well, I think we shouldn't forget it's not just a debate that goes on around people that actually existed. We've also got this discussion around who really are the greatest characters from our favourite fantasy settings, sci-fi settings. So are we also going to think around the arguments around Ron the Paunch? For example, is he a particularly great general? Maybe it was Abaddon the Despoiler from Warhammer 40,000. It's not just an argument that's limited to history. Now, it's been argued that the greatest of generals are those that achieve the policy aim they are setting out to do in the safest possible way. And this is based on the concept that war is politics by different means. If we look briefly at martial arts, and bear with me with this one, we can learn that it's pretty pointless to strike at the enemy if it's not safe to do so, particularly if you're doing a form of martial arts which involves weapons. If you launch a strike at your opponents and they realise they can't defend it, they may well try and take you with them. The end of the day is you've taken each other out, and what do you really win as a result of that? Far better to strike your opponent when they cannot strike you, or if they do attempt it, you are able to defend yourself against that incoming blow. And really, what is war if not a martial art on a massive scale? There is a reason, after all, why medieval generals tended to try and avoid battlefield encounters, preferring siegecraft, for example, as it is a much more precise science than the chaos and the unknown and the unpredictability of the battlefield. One name I've seen come up within the context of this sort of discussion is Brasius, a Spartan general who captured quite a lot of cities during Sparta's war with Athens, and who managed to achieve that without a battle. being fought. You substitute diplomacy, all sorts of different approaches in order to achieve his goals, but he didn't need to take to the battlefield. Is he a great general? He led a military force and he achieved the policy outcome he was tasked with achieving. And he did so at low cost, where that cost is being measured in blood and pain. So it could be said that the best of generals are those that win a battle before it's even fought, either because the enemy is so demoralised, so mentally broken that they can't engage in a significant way, in an effective way, or they simply refuse to engage and give up without the battle being fought. And I think this argument does make a lot of sense, but it also makes it very difficult for us, I think, to determine who the greatest generals in history were. And why is that? Well, the history books are full of successful generals. People have achieved glorious victories on the battlefield. Be it William the Conqueror overcoming Harold of England at Hastings, or perhaps you're looking at the Duke de Bourbon's success at the Battle of Pavia. There's so many of these stories, but these are big victories. They're important victories, although particularly close run affairs, battles which have changed history or have just become embedded into legend, such as the Alamo, for example. History, and let's face it, Hollywood isn't excited about the general that goes to war, never fights a battle, and is victorious. They're not the characters we grow up with, the people that we see in the films and TVs, that you see in the cartoon strips or any of that sort of stuff. So whilst it may be right to say that the greatest of generals are those who are able to win without fighting, maybe by putting that as our standard, we can't actually really assess who the greatest general really was, because the greatest general of all time may already have been forgotten. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening to my thoughts on this particular topic. If you've got an angle you'd like to share, do feel free to do so in the comments down below. Once again, thank you very much for listening. I am Return to the Old World. Have a great day.